we open up for the question and answer session, that would be fantastic. And just to mention that we will be videoing recording the session. If you don't want to be visible on the recording, just pop your cameras off, and that will obviously not show you. So I will introduce Matthew. So Matthew Wood has very kindly agreed to present to us today as part of our Learning from Lived Experience programme of events. So we've been running these since June. And we've been getting some really fantastic feedback from them. So it's really kind of Matthew to present to us today on his experience of adopting as a same-sex couple. So Matthew is a senior project manager within the digital programs team, and I will hand over to Matthew to tell his story. Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, thank you everyone for listening. I was trying to work out where to start with this, and I suppose for me it starts from the fact that ever since I can remember, I've always wanted, to have kids, little mini me's running around the house, and never really kind of, as I understood my sexuality, and knew that I was gay, never really kind of took into account the mechanics of that, and certain ingredients are needed to make a child. And then when me and my partner got together, and about 2.5 years into a relationship, we started talking about the idea of having kids. And adoption had never really entered our heads as an option. We were always very much talking about surrogacy and looking at the idea of surrogacy. And every time we were looking at it, obviously there's a cost associated with it. Whilst you can't charge for surrogacy, there is a lot of expenses that's associated with it. And we just kept coming to this point of, it seems so expensive to bring a child into this world, where I would much prefer to put that money, to the actual child themselves, actually invest that money into a child, as opposed to just getting the child in the first place. And so that's where we started to have the discussion around adoption. And one of the questions that me and my partner kept asking, and being completely honest, open, transparent with this, was, could we genuinely, love and put a child first that isn't biologically ours? And that's such a hard question to ask yourself. And almost one that you don't want to admit to, but it's, it was the start of us actually having open and honest conversations. And for me, that was a lot to get my head around. As I said, I'd always seen mini me's running around, and it was this being that I just put first and just came above everything else, and genuinely going, could I actually do that with a child that's not biologically mine, or, at least my partner's? And then I realized, randomly one day, that actually one of my friend's kids, who I've known since he was born, that if he ran in front of a bus, I know that I would push him out of the way and be hit by the bus myself to save his life. And I realized if I could do that for a friend's child, I could certainly do that for my own child, even through adoption. So we originally kicked off the adoption process about 3 years ago, with the local authority. And something just didn't feel right, that we didn't connect. And I think when someone's prying into your entire history, your entire life, your entire relationship as a couple, your family and friends, it's really important to be able to connect with that person. And something just didn't feel right for us on our side. So we actually pulled out of the process with the local authority. And it took about a year for us to actually kind of get over that. We thought, oh, that's it. It's hampered our chances. It's hampered our opportunity of actually getting a kid through adoption. Surrogacy is so expensive. We just thought that was it. And then my sister, who is a social worker down in Lancashire, actually recommended us to contact Caritas Care, who are essentially a third party, like charity organisation, who will deal with getting you approved for adoption. And so we made inquiries with them back in June last year. and something just felt right. You know, again, the social worker we had just felt right. And during one of the first meetings we had with her, again, everything virtually, because COVID was obviously happening at this time, um, she actually told us that she herself was gay. She was a lesbian, or she is a lesbian, I should say, and she's had a partner of about 13 years. And that again just put us at ease, because it was someone who knew, you know, what we were going through, and obviously kind of the challenges that we may face being a same-sex couple adopting. I've got to say, the process for us was relatively smooth. I am Mr. Organised, so I'm the one who's pushing for all the paperwork to be completed, and you know, getting all the stuff from the doctors and from local authorities and things like that to be completed, because that's just in my nature. Um, but yeah, they were really supportive all the way through. And I think for us, probably one of the biggest challenges we had to consider when looking at children's profiles and understanding what type of children we could take into account, for us to accept, was, um, based on where we live, there is not a huge diversity in terms of BEME community and so on. And that's something that needs to be taken into account. Certainly when you bring in a child that is adopted, that is already putting that child into a minority. And then looking at the community and looking at the community within schools and things like that, that is another kind of thing to be considered. And then also at the same time, we also had to consider the fact of a child being adopted by a same-sex couple. So for us, it was a really hard decision, and one that was made, you know, in conjunction with the with Caritas Care, that the child that we would adopt would be, you know, the same ethnicity as ourselves, and that was something that we'd never considered. You know, it's not a problem to us. Nothing like that is an issue for ourselves. But given all the other kind of minorities and criteria that was going against this child, you know, you got to think about them in that school setting, and unfortunately, kids can be evil and things like that. So you have to really take these things into account. But apart from that, there's nothing really that challenged us as a same-sex couple. There were a few people on our social media feeds when we did first announce that we'd been approved. We didn't announce anything wider until we'd actually been approved, where they, you know, where they did comment on, is it right that two men are adopting a child? We were challenged about, what about female presence in this child's life? And again, that for us made us think, should we be adopting a girl? Because we can't give insight into what it's like when she hits puberty the same, and when she's discovering herself and understanding her own sexuality and things like that. But we have such a strong supportive network around us of people that are willing to, you know, talk to her about these things and talk to her about changes that's happening in her body, you know, in place of us, that for us didn't become a driving factor as to, you know, why we would choose a boy over a girl. And actually quite good for us, because on the day we got approved to be adopters was the 10th of December last year. And on the same day, we got 6 children's profiles through, and our little girl was actually one of those first profiles that we received. And even though we received more since then, we just kept coming back to her profile. Something just felt right with this child. So yeah, over the Christmas period, you know, we were trying to keep ourselves kind of contained, but we knew that she was the one we were wanting to kind of progress with. So we only told a few people close to us that this was a child we're looking at. And then it was in January, after kind of the festive season, that her social worker at the time kind of said, no, we're happy, you know, you are top of our list for her to adopt. We first met her over Teams in early February, which was surreal, you know, just to have this little girl that's going to be yours plonked in front of you. You kind of like, but we couldn't say to her who we were going to be at the time, which was really, really hard, but I suppose easier than if we actually met her face to face in person at that time. And then, yeah, everything got approved and went through. We started being known as Daddy Dan and Daddy Matt to her via her amazing foster carers who worked really closely to kind of get her prepared, so that we met her in March for a week over where she comes from. So she's out of county originally. And then I think it was, my partner's going to kill me because I can never remember the date. I think it's the 16th of March that she actually came to live with us. And that was probably the shocking part, kind of suddenly being dumped with a 2.5-year-old and going, here you go, deal with this. And everyone just went bye and walked away, which was, yeah, the interesting bit of it. It was a bit like being put into a pan of boiling water at times. But yeah, it's been about 8 months now that she's been with us. Settled in quite nicely, gets on with everybody, gets on with our friends and their kids. And yeah, it already feels like she's never not been here. Yeah, I think that's everything, Lisa. So I'm happy to take any questions.
That's great. Thanks, Matthew. Just to mention, my electricity is flickering, so if I disappear, I'm really sorry. Obviously, it is very, very windy, so if I do, Pam will very kindly jump in. So yes. Thanks, Matt, for sharing that. Obviously, I had the privilege of meeting your daughter at Pride back in September, and we knew this was happening, so it was such a lovely thing to meet her. So that was great. Raj, you've got your hand up.
Hi, Matthew. Congratulations for being a father and having that experience sharing with us. I'm a pediatrician by background, and I do work with children who gets adopted and parents. I just really admire, your courage to kind of adopt a child and sharing the experience. I do feel that it's a really noble thing to do, to adopt a child. And yes, parenting is difficult for anyone. So not necessarily for you, it's difficult for anyone. Even for me, it was difficult being a pediatrician. But the good thing is that the children do bring a lot of happiness. So it's all the very best. And if there is anything, you need any help, I'm there. We always work with children and parents who are adopting a child. So it's really good to know, and all the very best.
Thank you, Raj. That's lovely. And yeah, completely. As I said, I've got quite a few friends with children, and it is a challenge. I think any of them will say it's a challenge. Fortunately for us, since we've got her, she sleeps straight through the night. So that's one issue we don't have. But yeah, I think certainly early on, especially, there was a lot of things, obviously knowing her background in history, where we were often wondering, is this normal behavior or is this being driven from history, historic events? And I think what's been really nice is being able to talk to our friends and actually have that reassurance when our friends go, yeah, mine did that. Like, don't panic kind of thing. So yeah, but no, that's lovely. Thank you so much, Raj.
Oh, thanks, Raj, for that. Have we got any more questions from the group? I've probably got a question, Matthew. So, what are you? So, is she going to nursery at the moment? What's your childcare arrangements?
So currently Dan is still on adoption leave. So he actually works in the ophthalmology department as an assistant practitioner, and he goes back just before his 30th birthday, actually in February, the day before. So he's so happy about that. Yeah. So at the moment she's not in nursery, but the plan is to introduce her into nursery in January. So we're currently looking between two, actually. We've just been visiting nurseries over the last week. So Mother Goose on Wigton Road and Willow Tree, which is behind the Little Asda on London Road. So they're kind of the two that are in our peripheral. But yeah, she'll be going there 3 days a week. And then Dan's brother will also be kind of looking after her one day and then Dan another day throughout the week. yeah, I think that's the hardest thing for me sometimes is I'm not as involved throughout the week because of working, even though I'm at home currently, which is great because at lunch I get to spend that with her. But that is definitely a challenge for myself, is just finding that balance between work and being a parent.
That's great, thank you. If anybody has any recommendations or comments on them two nurseries, I'm sure Matthew would be really welcome on that. We've got a couple of comments in the chat box, Matt. So we've got Liz Walsh has said, massive congratulations on becoming new dads.
Thank you,
We've
Liz.
got David Rayner Smith saying congratulations to you both. Sophie Keats, we've got congratulations on an amazing journey. I also had the privilege of seeing you and your partner with your daughter at Pride. She looked so happy, and she did look so happy, and she loved the freebies on the stall as well, didn't she? She really
every
did.
Every freebie, yeah. I think that was the most sweets.
We all love a freebie. We all love a freebie. So, Peter, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Congratulations, Matt. I think it's wonderful what you've done. Because children are magical, and although it's horsework, they add so much to your life, and it's a great life if you don't weaken, as they say. One thing I just wondered about is now you've got an addition to the family, whether you and your partner have considered whether you want to go on and adopt more in the future.
Yes, absolutely. I would love for us to have a little boy as well. Yeah, I've always personally seen two. I think my partner's possibly seen more, but I think having one's made him reevaluate. Gone, no, two will be enough. But yeah, even if, you know, by some magical windfall or something like that, we could suddenly afford to do surrogacy and it not really be an issue, I think we would still go down the adoption route. Because, as you said, you're giving a child the chance for a better life than what they've come from, and you know, we know a lot about her personal previous circumstances, and whilst a lot of it wasn't driven by her immediate kind of family, like her immediate birth mother and birth father, the impact that hopefully we can have on her life and hopefully a future child's life, you know, I'm hoping will be of benefit to herself and to society as a whole.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Kate Norman has put a couple of questions in the chat box. First of all, she said, congratulations on your adoption, Matt. First question is, did you get introduced to any other families who had already made the journey to same-sex adoption? And then the second question is, do you think adoption agencies or the council could make any changes to make the journey better for you all?
So we did. So we got put in contact with a same-sex couple in Barrow, who had recently adopted a little boy. I think he was about 3 or 4 when they had adopted him. So yeah, we got kind of given contact details with them, which was great because we were able to ask them questions and kind of go, oh, what about this? And what did you do with this? And did you understand X, Y, and Z? Which was amazing. And then on our actual adoption panel, which is where you have to go and present to finally be approved as adopters. One of the guys on there had also adopted as a same-sex couple. So following adoption panel, he was also there as additional support for us to ask any questions, and especially when we're receiving children's profiles. And kind of the hardest part is almost having to reject profiles because criteria doesn't quite match for everybody. And he kind of really helped us with that and kind of accepting that whilst you don't necessarily want to do it, it's the right thing to do for everybody. In terms of making the journey better for us all, I suppose that's really difficult to answer. We were actually one of the first cohorts, if you like, to go through the process through COVID and kind of doing everything virtually. I've got to say, if they could keep doing that, I think that opens up a real opportunity, because otherwise we would have had to go to Preston for 3 consecutive days to actually complete some training, where actually what we did was completed that over 4 2-hour Zoom sessions, which actually made it a lot simpler and easy to kind of work it around work commitments and life commitments and having dogs and, you know, everything like that as well. So for me, it would definitely be making, you know, continuing that flexibility of the process. And yeah, probably putting you in touch with even more kind of adopters from around the area for you to be able to speak to. But obviously we appreciated confidentiality and obviously COVID restrictions as well.
Thanks, Matt. I think technology has come on leaps and bounds these last 2 years, hasn't it, with COVID, and we would never have even thought that we'd be doing something like this 2 years ago. So that's one positive that I would say that would come out of COVID, which we can't say that there's many. So Raj, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, another question. Have you started watching all the CBBC and children's cartoons? Because that's what I did. Most of the video I watched when my kids were growing up.
Yeah, there is a lot of that going on. Certainly early days as well. Peppa Pig was very, very rife. However, we also weren't a fan of the themes coming out of Peppa Pig when we actually really watched it. And again, we're watching it through that second lens of, you know, being same-sex parents and considering how they kind of position things in that program. Our favourites as a dads is Hey Duggee. We love Hey Duggee. There's an adopted child in that program. There are single parents in it. The parents with tattoos up their arms. So I think that's really progressive and putting a positive message. Weirdly, she loves Pokemon. Absolutely loves Pokemon. So yeah, there's a lot of Pokemon watched in the house currently.
Great.
We all love a bit of program watching. It's fine. We've got a comment from Pam in the chat box saying, thank you for sharing your story today and congratulations. You have made a little girl very happy, and I'm sure, and given her a life where she will be nurtured and loved. Oh, that's
thank you, Pam.
Oh, and we've got another one from Angela Cook saying, congratulations to you both. A child needs a family to love them, and I can see from your face and listening to you today that this is what you are both providing for your little girl. Couldn't get my words out there. That's lovely. Have we got any more questions from the audience at all at this stage? No. Okie dokie. So that is. Oh, we've got some more. We've got some more comments. We've got one from Rachel. Ben, thank you for sharing your story, Matt. Your daughter is a very lucky little girl, and she is beautiful.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm sure some of you will have met her around the trust as well. She's been in with my partner a few times.
And David has commented, David Rayner-Smith, thank you, Matt, for being brave enough to talk about this in a public forum for us all. And I think for me, that just brings us on to thank you for sharing your story, Matt. I know these learning from lived experience sessions are very, it takes somebody being really brave to come forward and share their story. It's very emotional. We've had tears through these sessions of people talking about their experiences. Zoe Fulligar, who presented back in June, has been very, very honest about how emotional the session was. However, she also said that it was something that she really wanted to share to raise awareness. And I suppose my plea now to us all would be, if anybody is interested in doing a Learn from Lived Experience session, please give me a call or drop me an email. We are really wanting to continue with these into next year. I've put the feelers out for a Chinese New Year session in February, but really open to subjects and topics. Like I said, I completely understand that it is a very emotional and outing thing in to do, but you do have the support of me, and you've got the support of Pam and Kath as well from our communications team. So I would really welcome people to come forward, really. Does anybody have any comments or questions that we'd like to raise before we close the session today? No? Matt, anything else that you'd like to add before we finish?
I don't think so, no. I mean, thank you for the opportunity, and obviously thank you for listening. It's great to talk about these things, and I think adoption is something that's becoming more and more normal in society, and there are so many kids out there looking to be adopted of all ages. So it's great that I've got this platform to be able to actually talk about it.
That's great. Thanks, Matt. Again, it's been really great. And again, just a bit of a plug. So we've got our staff networks. This is where we got Matt from for this session. So we've got our LGBT+, we've got our disability, we have our cultural diversity, and we have our armed forces. So again, if anybody's interested in joining one of the staff networks, just give me a call or drop me an email, and we can get you involved in those. A great support networking opportunity. There is a business operational element to it as well, but we're really trying to push the support networking element of those groups. So it would be great to have more members join us. Okay, we'll leave it there. That's great. So thank you all for joining. I hope you found it really informative and interesting, and we will see you all in the new year. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Matthew.